Before we begin, pause for a moment. Tell us in the comments where you're joining from and what time is it for you right now. We love seeing this circle of minds gathered across the world, across night and day, united for a while in story. Now close your eyes, take a slow breath, and imagine a silence so vast it stretches across the earth. No church bells, no call to prayer, no temple gongs. The voices of the old gods are gone. This is not the dawn of faith. It is its twilight. You're alive to witness something no human before you has ever seen. The last religion on earth. It begins quietly, not with fire raining from the sky, not with a prophet declaring the end, but with absence. An empty pew in a church once crowded, a mosque where the carpets lie ungreased, a temple bell that rusts on a chain unrung. For thousands of years, belief was the heartbeat of humanity. From painted caves to marble cathedrals, from desert shrines to mountain monasteries, we spoke to the invisible. We bent our knees to the unknown. We offered fruit, blood, incense, song, anything to bridge the gap between ourselves and the beyond. But centuries passed. Science explained the stars, medicine healed the sick. Global networks carried truth and lies faster than sermons could spread. One by one, the old faiths thinned. Not erased, but starved. Their holy texts became literature. Their rituals, heritage tourism. Their gods, memories. You walk through a city in this future and see the ruins of devotion. A cathedral turned into a library, its stained glass filtering light onto books instead of prayers. A pagoda converted into a market, incense replaced with spices and silk. A mosque echoing only with tourists' footsteps, their cameras clicking where once the faithful prostrated. Religion does not end with anger. It ends with forgetfulness. Generations who no longer ask their children to memorize psalms. Festivals observed as holidays stripped of their sacred core. Prayers whispered only at deathbeds, out of habit, not conviction. You're part of the silence. You were born into it. Your grandma told stories of belief, but you never inherited the fire in her eyes. You saw only the ashes, faint and gray. And yet, something lingers. Because humanity does not abandon belief easily. We are creatures of pattern, of myth, of longing. We search for meaning the way roots search for water. So, even in the silence of the old gods, something begins to stir. You notice it first in the eyes of the people who have lost everything. Climate refugees who watched seas swallow their homes. Survivors of wars where no ideology remained to justify the blood. They speak not of gods, but of oneness. A sense that something, perhaps not divine, but greater than themselves, still connects every breath, every star, every mind. The philosophers call it the last faith. Not revealed by prophets, not enforced by kings, but born slowly, organically, out of exhaustion. Humanity, stripped of its many religions, begins to wonder, if all gods are gone, why do we still feel the ache to pray? If temples crumble, why do we still build monuments to memory, to love, to grief? If the heavens are silent, why do we still look upward? You stand in the middle of a deserted basilica. Dust floats like incense in the shafts of sunlight. No choir sings, no priest preaches, yet the silence feels sick, charged, as if belief itself still haunts the air. Perhaps this is the beginning of the last religion. Not in words, not in rituals, but in the simple recognition that we cannot stop longing. So, out of silence, a seed waits to sprout. This is the silence of the old gods, the quiet that came before the last great faith. In the next chapter, we will step into the moment of rebirth, the spark that ignited the last religion on earth. It does not begin with thunder, it does not arrive with miracles. The last religion is not shouted into existence, it is whispered. A whisper passed between strangers on night trains, between scientists staring at stars too vast to map, between children who, even without scriptures, invent their own prayers before sleep. The 21st and 22nd centuries were hard teachers. Flooded cities, vanished coastlines, crops failing under skies that changed too quickly. Wars were not fought over faith, but over fresh water, arable land, breathable air. In the midst of this collapse, the world grew tired of old divisions, tired of being cut into tribes, sects, denominations. You imagine the feeling of waking through refugee camps where survivors speak dozens of languages, yet all share the same hollow eyes. At night, under flickering lamps, no one prays to separate gods. They only whisper the same wordless yearning. Why? It is in those camps, those liminal places between death and survival, that the first seeds of the last religion are planted. Every faith needs a symbol, not because symbols are necessary, but because the human mind clings to them like anchors. The last religion's first symbol was not a cross, a crescent, or a lotus. It was a circle, drawn in the dust by children, painted on refugee walls, scrawled by scientists in notebooks while describing the orbits of planets, the cycles of ecosystems, the turning of time. This circle meant many things: wholeness, return, unity. But above all, it meant no edges. No chosen people, no favored tribe, no division. Just one endless loop, beginning and ending in itself. No prophets rose, no tablets of stone descended from the sky. Instead, the creed formed like dew, wordless at first, then gathered into phrases. You hear it spoken in hushed tones, in shelters and laboratories. We are one breath. The universe within, the universe without. What is remembered lives. Not commandments, not threats, not promises of paradise, but reminders simple enough for a child to speak, profound enough to survive without translation. Every new faith has a gathering moment. For the last religion, it was not a battlefield or a vision in the desert. It was a blackout. One night, across continents, the power grid failed. Cities went dark, screens went silent. People stepped outside and, for the first time in generations, saw the stars clearly. Billions of pinpricks of fire stitched across the black. Galaxies arching overhead. The Milky Way, ancient and indifferent, burning silently. And something happened. People sang, not hymns, but they remembered the tones, hums, wordless chants that rose naturally from their throats. Cities became choirs. Strangers joined hands without knowing why. Children pointed upward and whispered, "Home." That night, the circle became not just a drawing, but a movement. In every age, someone emerges who carries the voice of the generation. This time, it was not a priest or a warrior. It was a linguist, an old woman known for stitching dying languages back together. She stood in a camp on the edge of a drowned city and said, "Every tongue has a word for breath, and every breath is the same air. We do not need gods to tell us this. We are already bound." She never claimed to be a prophet. She rejected titles. But recordings of her words spread across networks carried like scripture. Her phrase, "We are one breath," became the seed of liturgy. What does it mean to worship when there are no gods left to bow to? It meant gathering in circles, not rows. It meant silence as often as speech. It meant rituals, not of sacrifice, but of remembrance. Planting trees for the dead, lighting lanterns, not to call spirits, but to remind the living of fragility, breathing together, synchronizing heartbeats like waves in an unseen ocean. Children grew up not memorizing holy wars, but constellations. Adults confessed not to priests, but to each other, holding circles where stories of shame were met with compassion, not punishment. Faith was no longer vertical, between man and sky. It was horizontal, between each other and everything alive. Over centuries, words hardened into doctrine. The last religion taught three truths. Interbeing, nothing exists alone. Every life touches every other. Memory, to be remembered is to live beyond death. Forgetting is the only true loss. Return, all things come back in some form, soil to root, breath to air, light to stars. There were no heavens, no hells, only circles upon circles, endless as time. Not all welcomed the final fate. Some accused of it being too soft, too vague, too universal. Others clung to remnants of old religions, fearing erasure. But wars over faith did not return. The world was too weary. Instead, the doubters withdrew into archives, into enclaves, into silence. The last religion spread not by conquest, but by default. Because when every other myth grew hollow, only the circle remained. Imagine yourself now, born in this era. As a child, you traced circles in dust without knowing why. As an adult, you join hands with strangers and feel your breath sinking with theirs. You live without commandments, yet you feel bound by something older than laws. You're not told what to believe. You are simply reminded. Every night, when you look at the stars, you feel it. The same silence that ended the old gods, now alive with presence. You're part of something vast, something final, something that may outlive even you. This was the birth of the final faith, a whisper that became a creed, a circle that became the last religion on earth. But what does it feel like to live inside it? Not as history, but as daily life. The last religion does not demand pilgrimage across deserts. It does not require kneeling 5 times a day. It does not measure you by what you eat or how you dress. And yet, your day is shaped by it. From the moment you wake to the moment you return to sleep. You wake in a modest dwelling. The walls are smooth, light filtering panels grown from engineered stone. Outside your window, the city hums, quiet, not frantic. Towers breathe in rhythm, designed to sway like reeds in the wind. Before speaking, before eating, before even touching water, you breathe. The first ritual of the last religion is not prayer, it is the breath. You sit upright, hands resting gently on your knees. You draw air in, slowly, steadily. Hold, release, 3 times. The words form silently in your mind, passed down since childhood. We are one breath. You imagine it leaving you, drifting through the city, mixing with the air of millions of others. You imagine it entering their lungs, their blood, their thoughts. The cycle begins again. Your morning meal is not lavish. A bowl of grains, fruit, and a sip of tea. Before you eat, you pause. On the table lies a strip of cloth, embroidered with names. The names of ancestors, loved ones, friends lost to storms or time. Every household keeps such a cloth. It is called the memory weave. You place your hand upon it, whisper one name aloud. Not to seek blessing, but to remind yourself how they lived. And what is remembered lives. The food tastes richer after the name, as if grief itself has fed you. The city is not crowded with traffic. The world of this future no longer runs on endless machines, but on slow harmonies. As you walk to work, you pass others. You nod sometimes. You touch palms in greetings. You elaborate handshake, just palm to palm. A brief press, then heart. Every such gesture is a reminder. You exist because others exist. And once a week, today, perhaps, you head not to work, but to the circle home. There are no altars here, no statues, no gilded ceilings, only a round hall with seats arranged in rings, tiered like ripples on a pond. At the center, an empty space, a circle of stone. The silence here feels different. It is not absence, it is waiting. You take your place among hundreds. The air smells of earth, candle wax, faint incense of cedar. The ritual begins not with a leader, but with a tone. A single note hummed by someone, anyone. Others join. The sound expands, weaving, thickening, until the entire hall vibrates. It is not melody, it is a resonance. You close your eyes and let the sound move through you. For a few minutes, the hall becomes one body, breathing, one voice speaking. And when the tone fades, silence again. But this silence is full, not empty. After the hum, a circle of confession begins. Not sins, not crimes, but shadows. One by one, people speak. I lied to my child. I hoarded food when I should have shared. I felt envy from my neighbor. No punishment follows. No praise absolves. Only listening. The group answers with one phrase. We remember. Not to excuse, not to condemn, to acknowledge. You share too. Your voice shakes. But no one laughs. No one rebukes. You feel the strange relief of being known. And this faith, forgiveness is not given from above. It is born between. The doubters and heretics. No faith, no matter how gentle, how universal, lives without shadows. Even the circle casts one. The last religion may be the final faith on earth, but not every soul bows to it. Some resist, some question, some whisper other stories in the dark. They are the doubters, the heretics, the ones who remind humanity that even unity can feel like cage. The weight of consensus. For most people, the last religion is not oppressive. It does not punish. It does not burn heretics or exile skeptics. But it is everywhere. Every meal begins with a name remembered. Every window glows with a lantern of return. Every community gathers weekly in circles of breath in confession. To doubt is not a crime, but it is lonely. Imagine standing in a circle hall where hundreds hum in unison. You open your mouth and nothing comes. Your silence is swallowed, unnoticed, but heavy. You leave with a strange ache, not guilt, but alienation. The last religion asks nothing of you, yet that nothing can feel unbearable. Some live within the faith but without belief. They keep the cloth of names, but it lies folded in a drawer. They light the lantern, but more out of habit than reverence. They breathe with the circle, but their thoughts wander to the mundane. Debts, errands, private grief. These quiet atheists do not rebel. They drift. To them, the last religion is like background music, always playing, rarely listened to. Others resist more actively. They gather in small rooms, discussing with a sharp edge of philosophy. Memory is not eternal. Eventually, all names are forgotten. What then? Circles are comforting illusions. The universe is not kind, it is indifferent. To claim we are one breath is poetry, not truth. My suffering is mine and no ritual dissolves it. Their words do not burn temples, but they plant doubts in young minds, and doubt spreads like cracks through stone. There are also those who cling to fragments of older religions. A grandmother whispering a rosary beneath her breath. A man bowing toward Mecca in a locked room. A family celebrating Passover quietly without public notice. They are not persecuted, but they are pitied, viewed as relics, quaint holdouts of a time when humanity was divided. Children raised in these enclaves grow up with twin identities. One for the circle, one for the secret flame of the past. For them, the lost religion feels less like salvation and more like erasure. Occasionally, doubt bursts into the open. You recall one story often told in whispers. The story of heretic of solstice. A young woman stood during the festival of breath in front of millions and refused to join. She shouted, "This breath is not mine. My grief is not yours. Stop pretending we are one." The crowd gasped. No stones were thrown. No gods dragged her away. Instead, silence fell. A silence more crushing than violence. She fled the city. Her name was never recorded in the archive. Her memory vanished like smoke. In a faith that worships remembrance, to be forgotten is the only true punishment. Science and the sacred. Every religion must wrestle with its opposite. For centuries, that opposite was science, cold, precise, unyielding. But by the age of the last religion, the divide is no longer war. It is conversation, it is tension, it is uneasy embrace. In the centuries before, science tore holes in the cloth of belief. Telescopes showed galaxies where heavens once shone. Biology mapped life in DNA strands instead of divine breath. Physics reduced miracles to forces, particles, equations. Religion recoiled, science surged, and in the end, gods fell silent. But when the last religion emerged, it did not resist science, it absorbed it. At the core of the faith is interbeing, the idea that nothing exists alone. Science gave it teeth. Neural nets revealed how every thought sparks in webs of billions of connections. Ecology proved that forests breathe as one, roots and fungi whispering beneath the soil. Cosmology showed that every atom in your body was born in a star, billions of years, dead yet alive in you. Where older religions demanded faith in the unseen, The last religion pointed to the microscope, the telescope, the equations. See, the circle was always here. In this age, laboratory carries a strange appearance. A geneticist sequencing DNA is not dismantling belief, but practicing it. An astronomer charting exoplanets whispers, "Return, return," as she logs orbits. Engineers designing sustainable cities built with circles, echoing the fate geometry. Science no longer stands apart, it becomes a ritual. The white coat and the monk's robe share the same dignity. The telescope and the temple bell serve the same purpose, to remind us of wonder. And yet, science also challenges the lost religion. If memory is sacred, what of digital immortality? If remembrance keeps us alive, what happens when minds can be stored, copied, simulated? Does a soul exist in code? If we are one breath, does artificial intelligence share that breath? The faithful argue, yes. Anything that thinks, feels, remembers is part of the circle. The skeptics argue, no. Machines hum, they do not breathe. Debates rage in universities and temples alike. The last religion does not resolve them, it only listens. Then comes a discovery too vast to ignore. Deep space telescopes detect signals, patterns in radiation that may not be random, not voices, but whispers of intelligence written across the fabric of universe. For some, it is proof of others, civilizations unseen, part of the circle. For others, it is destabilizing. If the circle is universal, then where is its center? The ritual of remembering grows strained. How do you whisper names of beings you will never know? How do you honor lives billions of light years away? Science expands the circle so wide that some fear it will shatter. The dying faith. No circle lasts forever. Even the most seamless line wears thin. Even the deepest chant fades to silence. The last religion, like all before it, begins to wither. Not with flames, not with swords, but with forgetting. At first, it is subtle. Lanterns are still lit in windows each evening. But fewer names are whispered. Some lanterns carry no words at all, only empty breath. In circle halls, the humming continues, but the resonance feels thinner, less urgent. Children fidget, adults close their eyes, but their thoughts drift to errands, to deaths, to hollow distractions. The rituals remain, but the meaning leaks out. Faith, once a fire, is now a habit. The archive of memory grows vast, too vast. Millions of voices, billions of stories, entire lives encoded, preserved, cataloged. But when everything is remembered, nothing feels sacred. You wander the archive and hear countless names, countless songs, countless griefs. They blur together. Once a single whisper named carried the weight of the world. Now, drowned in billions, it feels small. The ritual that gave immortality now smothers under its own abundance. A new generation rises. They do not remember the drowned cities, the wars, the hunger that birthed the faith. They are raised in relative abundance, in stability. For them, circle is not salvation, it is inheritance. And inherited rituals rarely burn with fire of those who created them. Children play games during the hum. They roll their eyes at the lanterns. They forget to place their palms on the memory wheel. Not because they hate the faith, but because they don't need it. The last religion was born to unify, but even unity fractures. Some argue the faith has grown too sentimental, too indulgent in memory. Others claim it must embrace technology fully, uploading minds into the archive, creating digital immortality. Still others reject the universality of the circle, calling for smaller, sharper identities. Circles begin to split into smaller rings, each claiming to remember more truly. And the circle that once united humanity begins to wobble, crack, splinter. In the absence of burning faith, a marketplace of meaning emerges. Some turn to philosophy alone, some to art as the new ritual, some to solitude, walking deserts and mountains, seeking private revelation. The circle halls stand half full, while new spaces rise. Studios, theaters, sanctuaries of silence where no circle is invoked. The last religion is not abandoned outright. It simply becomes one voice among many. And in a world that once longed for one breath, people begin to carve different airs. Imagine yourself in this twilight. You still light the lantern each night, but your children forget. You whisper names into the clock, but no one listens. You join the hum, but the sound feels thinner, scattered. You walk through the city of the last temple. The gardens bloom, but fewer pilgrims plant trees. The archive hums with endless voices, but the halls echo empty. The faith still exists, but it no longer feels alive. Just as it began, it ends. Not with violence, not with decree, but with silence. One evening, a circle hall waits for the hymn to begin, but no one starts. The silence stretches. The silence deepens. It feels heavy, familiar. The same silence that followed the death of the old gods. The same silence that birthed the last religion itself. There is a story told, perhaps myth, perhaps memory, of the very end. In a small home, an old woman lights a lantern. She whispers one name, her mother's. The lantern glows in the window. No others answer. The city is dark. The old woman watches the flame until dawn. Then she closes her eyes. The lantern flickers, dies, and with it, the last religion fades into history. This was the dying faith, the circle unraveling, the silence returning. But even when religions end, humanity remains. What comes after belief? What fills the void when the lantern fades? What comes after belief? The lanterns are out. The circle halls stand quiet. The archive hums, but no one listens. The last religion is gone, and yet humanity remains. What fills the silence after the final prayer? What does it mean to live without belief? At first, there is unease. People still reach for ritual, like a phantom limb. They pause before meals as if to whisper names, only to remember there is no cloth, no wave, no circle. Children ask, why did we stop? Parents shrug, we forgot. But life does not collapse. Crops grow, trains run, people fall in love. The sun still rises. The absence is not disaster. It is a hollow that lingers quietly. In place of ritual comes pragmatism. Communities turn fully to governance, science, art. They measure progress not by memory, but by survival and flourishing. Philosophers argue, perhaps this is maturity. Humanity, at last free from myths, living without gods, without circles. Temples are converted again, this time into schools, theaters, archives of pure data. People no longer speak of return or interbeing. They speak of efficiency, design, balance. The sacred is replaced by the useful, and yet something stirs. For even in this pragmatic age, people dream strange dreams. They dream of circles. They dream of voices humming. They wake with tears on their cheeks, not knowing why. Artists begin to paint symbols of orbits, galaxies. Musicians compose chants that echo like rituals long forgotten. Children play in gardens and without being taught, sit in circles humming softly together. The body remembers what the mind forgets. Longing is not erased, it waits. Out of this longing, new myths are born. Some speak of the cosmos itself as a living mind, an intelligence woven through galaxies, breathing in patterns beyond comprehension. Others whisper that humanity itself is becoming godlike. Our archives, our networks, our machines forming a consciousness greater than any prophet imagined. And some invent smaller myths of forests with souls, of oceans that dream, of ancestors walking invisibly beside us. Not official, not universal, but alive. Faith returns, not as a great circle, but as countless sparks scattered across the night. Imagine yourself born in this world. You grew up never lighting lanterns, never whispering names into cloth. The last religion is history taught in books, dramatized in plays, remembered only faintly. And yet, one night, you find yourself standing beneath the stars. You feel your chest rise, your breath leaving you. You imagine it mixing with the air, drifting through lungs of strangers. You do not call it prayer, but you know deep down you are part of something. Even without faith, the circle lingers. When religions die, not all is lost. They leave behind architecture, stories, art, and most of all, questions. The lost religion may have vanished, but its essence survives in new forms. In the way people still whisper names before falling asleep. In the way scientists still describe ecosystems as living webs. In the way artists still paint spirals, circles, orbits. Belief ends, but meaning leaks into everything. And so, after the last religion, humanity does not become faithless. It becomes many things: pragmatic, artistic, philosophical, fragmented, free. But in every corner of the earth, in every era that follows, one truth remains. We cannot help but reach for gods, for circles, for each other. And even when the lost religion is gone, even when the archive is dust, even when the lanterns are shattered, the reaching itself endures. Perhaps that reaching is the lost religion. Before you go, take one last look at the sky. Trace a slow, invisible ring around a cluster of stars with your fingertip, as if to gather them in. Whisper a name, any name, and let it pass your lips, like a seed back to soil. Not because the universe keeps letters, not because the gods return on breath, but because the act remakes you. What is remembered lives, not forever, not in marble, not in code, but in the way your hands hold a cup gentler after grief, in the way you cross a street slower when an old man limps ahead of you, in the way you laugh more softly when you realize joy is not a right, but a gift. If there is last religion, perhaps it is not a circle after all. Perhaps it is a posture, a leaning toward, a readiness to be changed by what touches you. You breathe again. The cool air lifts and lowers your chest. Somewhere far away, someone else is doing the same. And the space between you, empty, invisible, feels for an unaccountable instant like a bridge. You do not need to name it. You do not need to build a temple on it. You do not need to convince anyone it is real. You only need to notice. And if you choose tonight, before sleep, to place your hand on a table or a bedsheet or your own heart and say a single name into the dark, let it be yours too. Because you, as much as any prophet or pilgrim, belong to the story of a world that keeps remembering how to love what passes. Breathe in, breathe out. The lanterns are gone. The circle remains, and so do you. Thank you for traveling with us. If this story moved you, tell us where you're listening from. And if you'd like, type a single name in the comments for someone you remember tonight. Until next time, dream well. Tomorrow is already on its way.